Well, it's reached that point in the window, and I wonder how long it would actually take till we circles back here. A certain name has been linked with Celtic as our potential striker option for the 25-26 campaign. It's one of Brendan Rodgers' old flames, and it's none other than Jamie Vardy. So, we have quite a bit to talk about today, don't we? Hello, if you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Thank you all so much for the response and the feedback to yesterday's video on the channel, which is very quickly becoming one of my most viewed videos ever. I had a lot to get off my chest. I feel like I'd done it in a productive and fair fashion. If you haven't seen that video, then feel free to go check it out. I promise today I'll be a little bit more positive than what I was yesterday. However, I think a lot of what we have to talk about today maybe touches on some of that from yesterday. It just keeps coming back up, doesn't it? So Jamie Vardy has been linked with Celtic yet again. It's not for the first time in this transfer window, but it does feel like right now it's getting very real. And Celtic could be looking at Jamie Vardy as the starting striker this season if he apparently gets what he wants, because these headlines were the exclusive in the Sun of all places yesterday, that Jamie Vardy apparently has his heart set on a Brendan Rodgers reunion at Celtic, and he's ready to play until he's 40. He could have had a Premier League return, or he could have offers of a Premier League return, but apparently he has his heart set on Celtic. So the Sun article goes on to say that Jamie Vardy, with his heart set on a move to Celtic, wants an emotional reunion with Brendan Rodgers as he targets to play on until he's 40. He's desperate, in the words of the article, to complete a move to Scotland before the window slams shut. And although Brendan Rodgers is keen to add the player to his squad, he faces a battle to secure his signature, because apparently West Ham, Brentford and Wrexham are still tracking the forward as they look to bolster their front line. So Jamie Vardy has been training all summer with a personal trainer. Of course, he's been out of contract with Leicester since the 30th of June when his contract expired, and is looking for a new challenge. A challenge that has been suggested to be with Celtic for a number of months now. I thought it all blown over, and here we are back at it today. Now, before I get on to my own opinion, Sky Sports issued a more reliable update, I would say, this morning via their transfer show, live on air. This is what they had to say about it this morning. They said they understand that even though there is a story linking Jamie Vardy with a return to Brendan Rodgers and to go to Celtic, there hasn't actually been any discussions yet or any contact between Celtic and Jamie Vardy, which would imply to me that if there has been any contact, it might be between Brendan Rodgers and Jamie Vardy personally, but there is nothing to suggest that the club have officially moved for the player yet, have went to speak to him about contract situations yet. It is all just a little bit of hearsay from the Sun. And don't get me wrong, hearsay from the Sun is never a reliable thing. It's never a good thing. You know my opinions on the Sun. I can't make them any clearer to you right now. But this story's coming from somewhere. These stories do the rounds for some reason. And he is still without a club. And Celtic has been a move that would make sense for him all summer long. Let me make one thing crystal clear before I continue with my opinion here, before I talk about a potential move to Celtic for Jamie Vardy. I know a lot of people will be clicking this video presuming I'm going to moan about Celtic going for a 38-year-old Jamie Vardy, and you would be right. I will have a wee bit of a moan about it, but I'm actually not that bothered about the player himself. Jamie Vardy would undoubtedly come up to Scotland and do a good job in my eyes. I think that Jamie Vardy is a fantastic striker. He knows how to score goals. He would give us an option for a year. But this is where the problems start. Jamie Vardy signing for Celtic would be a damning indictment of everything that's wrong with our recruitment process. It would be a damning indictment of the laziness and the cheap work that goes on behind the scenes at Celtic. And it would be a damning indictment about what happens next with Brendan Rodgers. Because I truly do believe, deep down, and I think I can say this with confidence, if Jamie Vardy signs for Celtic in the next 2 weeks and he becomes Brendan Rodgers' striker for the season, I think it's the last season that we see Brendan Rodgers at Celtic. I just think that this is a quick fix for all parties. It's a quick fix for Jamie Vardy to come up here and finish off his career. It's a quick fix for Brendan Rodgers to get his striker in for the year. And it's a quick fix for the board, who might know that Brendan Rodgers has no intention of signing a new contract, and means they don't need to spend money on a striker for the season. I feel like it's just a quick fix for all parties, and I truly do believe in my heart of hearts it would be the final nail in the coffin for Brendan Rodgers' second stint at Celtic. I think that it would be the admission that the board don't want to back him with a striker that will actually cost money, that the board don't want to match his ambitions by signing someone who can see the next 2 or 3 years at Celtic under Brendan Rodgers, and I think it's just something to keep everybody happy for the year. That's where my problems start to come with the signing of Jamie Vardy, not with the player himself. Jamie Vardy, he's one of these players, I don't need to throw his stats up on screen for you. We don't need to talk about the kind of player Jamie Vardy is. We know exactly who Jamie Vardy is and exactly what his pedigree is. He's one of the best Premier League strikers of the last decade. There's no denying that. Since 2015 onwards, he's scored barrow loads of goals for Leicester. Premier League title winner with Leicester. Champions League footballer. Europa League, Conference League striker with Leicester City. We know exactly who he is and how good he is. But I just feel like it's an admission from the Celtic board that they can't be arsed. And that's the point that we're at. After months of being linked with strikers like Matthias Wiesgaard and David Strelic and Lois Montano, and guys that would cost maybe somewhere between £5 and £10 million, for us to end up with a 38-year-old Jamie Vardy who's looking to finish off his career, what does that say about us? And what is the point in having a scouting department? If that is the way that we're going to go from now until the end of time, it seems, if that is the route that Celtic want to go down, what is the point in paying wages to a scout? Any Celtic fan could watch Jamie Vardy, and many Celtic fans suggested him as an option for Celtic at the start of this summer transfer window. But the reason that we employ scouts is because they're meant to go and find the players that we don't see. They're meant to go and find the next big thing. All of us know who Jamie Vardy is. All of us can scout him watching Leicester on Sky Sports every week. But the scouts are meant to find players that are better, players that will be here longer, and players that will ultimately make some money for Celtic. That ain't going to happen with Jamie Vardy. Now, what I will say is I'm quite weary about all of this. The fact the story comes from The Sun in the first place, I feel like it could just be an article that's been wrote for some cheap clicks and attention. However, I don't think there's smoke without fire when it comes to stories like this, and it does just make a lot of sense for Brendan Rodgers to reunite with Jamie Vardy. There is no doubt in my mind that at some point in the last few months, Brendan Rodgers has fired a text to Jamie Vardy to see what his situation is and whether he'd be interested in a move to Celtic. I think that has happened, 100% that has happened. Whether it was this month, 2 months ago, 6 months ago, I think Brendan will have spoke to Jamie Vardy. They shared a very good relationship at Leicester City, and we know that was for everybody to see. But if Jamie Vardy had his heart set on a move to Celtic, if that line is to be believed, that Jamie Vardy had his heart set on a move to Celtic, then there's really no excuse for him not being here. He should be here. If he had his heart set on that move, then surely he'd be through the door and a Celtic player. No? If Celtic could have had that signing wrapped up without spending any money in the past few weeks or months, surely he'd be here. Now, I know people will say, oh, well, maybe he's assessing his other options. Maybe Brentford or West Ham will be able to offer him a better package that will change his heart's desire. But if his heart's set on it, I just think he'd be through the door by now, and I just think that there's maybe something to be wary about in all of this reading. We all know Celtic need a striker. They need one desperately, and we now have less than 2 weeks to get one through the door. It's a shambles that we've got to this point, and Jamie Vardy just makes sense now. Considering the circumstances that will follow in the next 2 weeks, it feels like Jamie Vardy's now a cert to join Celtic after reading stories like this. But there is so many questions to be asked, and you might be chuffed to see somebody like Jamie Vardy come through the door at Celtic, but I don't think that you should be naive enough to suggest that this is the direction Celtic should be going in. I think you should just be very worried if this is the route the board continuously decide to move in. We just need to wait and see what happens. Look, the guy contributed to 13 goals last year for a Leicester City side who were terrible, who couldn't buy goals, it felt like, in the Premier League, and yet he still contributed to 13 of them, scored 9 in the league alone, I'm talking here. So he clearly still has it in him. He's always been a very fit player. He's always looked after himself. For somebody who has this character around him and this kind of image of being a sort of, I don't know, rougher player, maybe kind of like a party type player. He's always looked after himself. He's kept himself fit. He still has his legs about him. Not as much as he did maybe 10 years ago, but he's still there. I just think that there's so many questions to be asked. And it's just sort of disappointing seeing Celtic always going down this route. We have ambition, and the board don't. Jamie Vardy isn't the only name that's been linked with Celtic in the past couple of days. In fact, Calvin Stengs of Feyenoord, his name is doing the rounds again after popping up initially last week. Now, you remember last week on Twitter, a Dutch publication wrote that Calvin Stengs would be an ideal target for Celtic. A lot of people online were getting that confused with Celtic actually looking at the player. That wasn't the case. He was just being suggested as a potential target for the club. I don't know if somebody at Celtic has seen that article, but there are now reports doing the rounds that Celtic have inquired about Calvin Stengs and are now seriously considering him as an option. So initially on Sunday night, the Celtics Are Here reported this, that Celtic had made contact over an ambitious Celtic Calvin Stengs deal. Celtics Are Here said that apparently the club had reached out to the players' representatives to explore the possibility of a move. However, that was with no talks between Celtic and Feyenoord officially taking place. It was only to establish the players' situation before carrying forward with anything else. This was then followed up on yesterday once again by Celtics Are Here, reiterating the point that they had approached the players' representatives. They hadn't approached Feyenoord, and they're testing the waters about a potential move for Calvin Stengs. He is currently playing for Feyenoord. He is a winger. He would tick a lot of boxes for what Celtic need. And I certainly think it's somebody that's a lot more ambitious than Jamie Vardy. Kind of backtracks on what I said about the Celtic board having no ambition. But this is in a very early stage right now with no guarantees of actually going anywhere. Stengs struggled with injury last year, which kept him out the Feyenoord side, but he did manage to make appearances across the Eredivisie and Champions League when he was fit. He is a Champions League experienced winger. The 23-24 campaign for him at Feyenoord was especially impressive across all competitions. He racked up over 20 goal contributions from the right wing, which has earned him as a position as one of these kind of watched players over in Holland. Sadly just couldn't build on it last year. He had a very good spell at AZ Alkmaar, which earned him a big move to Nice. Didn't really work out from there, went back to Feyenoord, started off well, and now finds himself out the squad and struggling for football. Celtic has been floated as a place for him to kind of revive his career, and honestly, I would take him in a heartbeat. Just to reiterate, there is nothing more than apparently Celtic reaching out to the players' representatives. There has been no official bids placed, and I would be surprised if it goes further just with the nature of how this window has went. I think Celtic have been very tentative with their business. Calvin Stengs is someone who would command probably a decent fee, something around £7 to £10 million. I don't see Celtic spending that just with how this window's went, but Champions League qualification could change that. We'll see what happens. I'm a big fan of how Calvin Stengs looks as a player. I think he'd be a great right wing option. I think Celtic should explore it further, but we need to wait and see what happens. A quick update on Michyl-Ange Balikwisha. I know that we're all fed up talking about him. Trust me, I am as well. I feel like I've been talking about him for years, and it's getting frustrating at this point. However, there was an update from journalist David Friel, who is usually quite reliable with his information. He said that he spoke to people at Antwerp about the situation, and he doesn't know where the rumours are coming from that he was on his way to Celtic. Now, you'll remember there was rumours doing the rounds on social media last week that the move was moving nicely and that it could have been happening. David Friel saying that those rumours, he doesn't know where they were coming from, and that doesn't seem to be the case. People in Belgium think that nothing's near that stage, but they aren't ruling anything out. Things can change very, very quickly. So all those rumours about how the Balikwisha move was ongoing and the forums saying that he was going to be here soon seems to be nonsense for now. But as David Friel says, don't rule out anything. Right, that does it for today. If you've enjoyed, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. We'll be back on the channel tonight with a live stream ahead of tomorrow's Champions League qualifier. But until then, please take care of yourself, and we'll see what happens. 2 weeks to go. Yay.